We back, day 11 of the 28 days of Black History Month. So I said I was just gonna jump in, y'all. I'm so excited about this video. I've been like running this information back in my head, trying to get it right to y'all, trying to relay it right. It's a lot of information, but I'm really, really happy to share it. A lot of this stuff I didn't know. First of all, hold up. Today we're going to be discussing Black American foods, Black American foodways, things that we brought to America, which I'm really excited about. I made a little, little display, a little, brother ain't have no production, so I cook for y'all, okay? I cook for y'all. Y'all know I ain't playing. Originally, so I got here some watermelon. We brought watermelon. I'll get to that. Some candied yams and some black-eyed peas, but there's so much more, so much more. You know what, since I brought it up, let me just, maybe I'll say that to the end. I'll eat on it then, or I'll eat on it after. Basically, I wanted to do this video because New Year's, you know, child, New Year's we had a, a COVID-friendly, socially distanced, little celebration amongst us and a couple of our friends here at my house, and I made black-eyed peas, and I made cabbage, but of course we do, Black Americans, we do black-eyed peas or collard greens or cabbage, either or. But I made cabbage this year and black-eyed peas. And my friend actually had never, my friend is white, had never had black-eyed peas before, so I was able to introduce them to black-eyed peas and let them know, like, this is our tradition, this is what we do. So a friend of my friend, right? Friend of my friend who was also white, and it's also one of those type of people's, which I'm not here, I ain't slinging no tea, I ain't got time, but it obviously helped me, understand even my own culture a little bit more, just doing the research, which is important, which is the point of these videos. The person's one of those kind of know-it-all, kind of, so did I types, want somebody that's just always trying to one-up you or whatever. And basically tried to take credit for black-eyed peas. It's like, oh, well, my family, we, like, do black-eyed peas for New Year's, like, and this person is also from, ironically, around the same area as me, in North Carolina. And I was just looking, I'm like, because I've always known that this is a part of our culture, that this is something that we've carried on since slavery, quite literally. And so it made me go back to the information, and of course, I brought the information back, because what you not gonna do I'm the nigga who makes cooked goods and does 28 days of Black History Month videos. What you not gonna do is come for me and my folks. Definitely brought that information back and made it very clear that this is not something, for one, Southern culture is black culture, is Black American culture, quite literally. And second of all, American cuisine, just in general, is black American, and also a fusion of other different cultures and stuff as well, but Southern culture in particular, Southern food, you know how they try and throw around those terms like Southern style cooking and all of that sort of shit. No, that is quite literally Black American food ways. If you think about it, we were the ones in the kitchen. Like, had we not been in the kitchen, they probably would have starved. We were raising babies and in the kitchen and doing everything else while they sat around. With that being said, I did the research, and it just really, like, blew my mind. Like, just blew my mind. All of the things that we brought over, and like things that, like, some things that I knew and some things that I just did not know, and it just led me down this rabbit hole of just doing all of this research and really, like, finding out all these different things about our culture that I just really had no idea about. So I decided to do the video on our food. So I'll start off with black-eyed peas, since that's one of the ones. Black-eyed peas was actually one of, so whenever we were enslaved, they went to Africa, obviously, traded, sold, that sort of thing. When they were loading us onto the ships, they realized that they needed to feed us. Clearly, we could not eat the shit that they were trying to feed us, so they had to have gotten the food that we ate. To, those trips were like months, months and months, a good chunk of the year. So they had to get the food that we were used to eating, so we wouldn't starve. They got tons of seeds and fruits and different foods and stuff that we could consume for the trip. Things like yams and okra, black eyed peas, like those sorts of things, which I'll also get to in this video. But black eyed peas were one of those foods, and what's interesting about black eyed peas is when we brought them here, like everything else, like as soon as we touched back down, we planted them. But black eyed peas kind of became this like mainstay in American culture, like most of these foods, like all of these foods, which is obviously why I'm making a video. But they also call them cowpeas, and what's interesting about them is that they call them cowpeas because they were really good like food sources for cows to eat. They were also really good for like gardening, so like to keep away weeds and things like that. Like I said, as well as feeding the cows. So I thought that was really crazy. I had no idea that was even like a thing. Or I knew that they came from us, but I didn't know like the direct history behind it. So doing that research was just, it blew my mind. Next, I'll talk about okra. Okra was obviously one of the other foods that I mentioned, and again, it was brought, it was something that we needed in order to sustain ourselves throughout the Middle Passage. Yams was also one of those things. What's interesting about yams was obviously they were super nourishing, and they kept us full. The estimate of how many yams per enslaved person was for every 500 slaves. For every 500 slaves, you needed about 100,000 yams. So per trip, they would take about 100, or depending on how many enslaved people they would have on the boat, for every 500, they would have to take 100,000 yams in order to make that trip. For the ones that survived anyway, they wanted to be able to feed them so they could profit off of them. And of course, whenever we got here, it's been a mainstay. It's still a mainstay. As soon as we touched down off of the slave ships, like that was like one of the first things. Obviously, all of those things were because they needed to, again, make profit off of us and keep us alive. And of course, the food that they were cooking didn't agree with us. So we planted it, and it's been within our households for the longest. Funny thing about yams, which I made sweet potatoes, and there's a history behind sweet potatoes. Anyway, but yams, child. I finally this year, for one, I learned how to make candy yams. I love candy yams. Check me out, candy yams. Made my candy yams. But I also learned how to make my grandma's sweet potato pie, y'all. And like history behind my grandma's sweet potato pie. I grew up on that pie. When I tell you my grandma is the baker, she's that girl when it comes to baking. My grandma is an amazing baker, and since I was a kid, we grew up on that pie. I remember us, how to have like the little light on the stove where you can like peep in. I remember us being kids, like running to the stove, peeping in, trying to see when our pies were done. It would be like a full day of like pie making and that sort of thing, but it don't take that long to make the pie. But she would make them in bulk. She would always make them during like special occasions, reunions, family reunions, or like if somebody wanted a pie made, she would make them. She would make them, especially in the fall during like Thanksgiving and Christmas time. She would always make her pies, and whenever they showed up, like everybody was always happy, and they would always get gone. So yeah, I love my grandma's pie. I also made her pie for New Year's as well. I'm so happy. That was the first time I actually made it. Since then, I made her pie maybe one other time. Yeah. I made her pie twice now. And yeah, I grew up eating it. And the best thing about it is like, you could eat it fresh out of the oven or you could have it cold. It was best cold, and I would always eat it cold. I loved it cold, like right out of the fridge with like a good glass of milk. Bomb. Um, so yeah, that's yams. Next on the list we have, what I said I was gonna do. Said I was gonna do, you know what? Watermelon. Watermelon was also one of those fruits, and it's crazy because like we all know the history with watermelon and Black Americans in this country. Like we got so much hell for eating watermelon, and you know, we brought watermelon here. You know what I mean? It's from our home. You know what I mean? Of course we would love watermelon. It's ours. Um, the thing about it is that, you know, we got so much hell for liking watermelon, which i.e., or sidebar rather, everybody likes fucking watermelon. Like, I'm sure there are people who are like, oh, I don't really care for watermelon or whatever, but like literally the foods they try and demonize us with and like make into this like racist thing, like everybody fucking eats. So it's weird. It's weird. Like if we eat it, you probably ate it because we was the ones cooking and we were the ones who taught you how to cook. So, or your grandma and them. That's neither here nor there. The thing about watermelon though is that like it's super nourishing. It's super nourishing. It's super hydrating. Super healthy for you. It's filling, honestly, and like you gotta think too. Like these people were like starving and torturing us. Like of course we fucking love watermelon. Um, it's just crazy how these people. Anyway, but also, fun fact, it is the, let's see, it's the second best-selling fruit in America, to my point, and it is the most consumed melon in the United States. Watermelon facts. So yeah, there's that. Also, the origin in Africa. So it's unsure from my research. It's unsure where exactly in Africa the watermelon originated, but what they do know is that watermelons were buried with pharaohs in their tombs, in the sarcophaguses, to nourish them in the afterlife. Egypt obviously being in Africa. So yeah, but we brought it over here. So there's that. Next on the list, we are going to do rice. Now, what's interesting about rice, rice, and it's crazy because I didn't realize rice was one of the ones that just kind of really blew my mind and really got me to start to thinking about all sorts of things. Because rice, we brought rice here during slavery. There was this one article that was trying to say that it was like imported here in like the mid to late 1650s, but that ain't how I learned the history about rice being brought over here. What I learned about rice prior to doing all this research was that during slavery, when we were being put on the ships, you know, of course they would take our foods and, you know, obviously try and put them on the ship so that we would have food for the trip during the middle of passage. But we also brought our own foods and our own seeds and things like that. We would sneak them onto the ships, and the ways that we would sneak them onto the ships, it just blew my mind. We would braid them into our hair. So like some of the women, they would take the seeds of different plants, take rice and things like that, and they would braid them into your hair. And if you think about the history of just like, again, we talked about movies the other day and just some of these crazy ass depictions, this propaganda, especially in like film and stuff like that, film and television. You think back to the black exploitation era and you think about all of the imagery that was used with black women's hair and that sort of thing, and pulling guns out of their hair, pulling knives out of their hair, all of that shit. It comes from somewhere. We would plant those things, and we are the survivors, okay? Just point blank, period. Blows my mind when I come across this stuff, y'all. What's crazy about rice in America, which again we brought over, is that rice was so popular here. Rice literally, as you guys know, I'm from North Carolina. Rice is literally responsible for the economy of North Carolina. Like, rice production was huge in North Carolina. Like, the nickname for rice was Carolina Gold. And it was so popular, and it built the economy so much and produced so much money. They literally would, like, take slaves from here who, you know, obviously still knew Africa, and would go back to, like, scout out the different places to where they were producing and cultivating rice, and then they would traffic those people back to America, enslave them, and would send us to the Carolinas and to Mexico to work and to cultivate rice. Crazy. Insane. Blew my mind whenever I found out. I'm just like, are you freaking serious? And you already know where my mind went. You already know where my mind went, but we'll get there. What would I do next? I want to do sesame seed oil, or sesame seeds. So sesame seeds were another one that we brought over, similar to rice, how we brought it over, whether it be the planting of the hair, I want to say pocketing it, but you already know how impossible, or not impossible, anything is possible, but needless to say, it was one of the things that we brought over. We figured out ways to bring it over. And with sesame seeds, no soon as they got here, like no soon as they got here, it was said that they brought them here around like 1730. And no soon as they got here, when they realized that we knew how to make them into different sort of things. So like when you talk about like sesame seed oil and all of those different things, that comes from us. What we would do, we would make it into oils and stuff like that. And what white folks did, literally would take it from us, take it to England, and like capitalize off of it. And literally sesame seed oil, I mean, you see today how popular sesame seed oil is. That's because of us. Literally would take it to like England, and it would be a competitor with like olive oil, quite literally. So yeah, there's that, sesame seed oil. Next I am going to do cola nut. Y'all already know where I'm going with this, I'm sure, and if you don't, buckle in. And it's quite simple. Cola nuts are one of the main, or they were when Coca-Cola, America's favorite beverage, right? Coca-Cola was made, originally cola nut was one of the main ingredients, one of the most important ingredients. And what was interesting about cola nuts, we would use cola nuts back in Africa to, we would suck on them for the caffeine. Yeah, we would suck on them for the caffeine. And like the idea of Coca-Cola being what it is today and what it's been, it just blows my mind, because Coca-Cola today is the net worth of Coca-Cola is $80.83 billion. That was reported like last year. So the idea that we brought it over here, but you can capitalize off of it and make money. You already know the conversation that we had the other day about patents and inventions and shit like that. Like the idea that you can take our intellectual property and you can take our things and capitalize of it because you quote unquote own us, blows my mind. Blows my mind. And like, nobody's trying to like make up for that. Nobody. Like, trust me, the people at Coca-Cola ain't thinking about none of that. They sitting on their money, our money, quite literally, and they living their lives while where we are. There was another that I wanted to touch down on. Oh, coffee. Coffee comes from Africa. Coffee comes from Ethiopia. And, you know, this is well documented, pre the 1500s. Coffee, Ethiopians perfected the brewing of coffee, taking the flavors from coffee, you know, all of that stuff. Like, they perfected all of those things. Like, you know, the idea of the coffee house, we had been doing all of that stuff. So when you thinking about like Starbucks and like Pete's and like all these different like brands, that started with us. Coffee comes from Africa. Honorable mentions. So I think that was the last one that I was gonna cover. But like the honorable mentions I wanted to touch on. One pot cooking. You know, that came from us. We've been doing one pot cooking, stews, gumbos, jambalaya, thickening with like plants, and that sort of thing. Barbecuing, you know, I'm talking about all these things. I just think about it, and like when I was doing the research, I'm just like, this is our food. This is like, because I'm from the South, so like I'm like, this is everything we eat. Like this is ours. Like barbecuing, frying fish, that comes from us. How we cook greens, in terms of like savoring like the juices and drinking the juices and stuff like that. That comes from us. Wasn't nobody doing that. It's amazing. And when you think about it, like I was saying before, like you always see, like, I just think of it, especially in places like LA, like you see all these like southern style food like spots and shit like that, and it's just like it's cool. It's almost like when they say like urban music or like urban clothes or like shit like that, like nigga shit. It's nigga shit. It's black American shit. This blows my mind. Something I also didn't know that I found in this research was like, we as a people are, our diets mostly like consist of, it's really plant based. Like a lot of the foods that we eat and ate then were super plant based. Like I mean, like I said before, like the yams or like the okra, which comes from us. Funny story about that okra, y'all. I literally like prepared some Brussels sprouts. I meant to get okra and picked up Brussels sprouts and was ready to go in about them Brussels sprouts. Like was ready to go in. Like you wasn't gonna tell me shit about Brussels sprouts. Like as far as I was concerned, that was nigga shit too. Didn't make those obviously, but okra is ours. But yeah, we're super plant based. And what's interesting about that is like pre us coming here, like had we not came here, things would be vastly different, obviously. But like our food systems and our food ways, had they not been a part of American customs, had we not introduced those to white folks, they would have been super malnourished. You gotta think, like, when you talking about, like, England and shit like that, they was eating, like, meat pies and bullshit like that. Like, we introduced a lot of vegetables and including those in, like, dinners and our food and our meals and stuff like that. A lot of presidents who owned slaves, like Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, you know, they had slaves and their slaves had gardens. A lot of our people during that time had their own gardens because they weren't giving us food. They were giving us like rations, which with those scraps, you know, we threw down, made soul food, made your chitlins, made your hog maws, made your, you know, all of these different things. Turned the scraps into cuisine, quite literally. But we also had our own gardens, so we grew our own food, which is beautiful. And yeah, I'm so freaking proud of that. Like doing this research, man. I'm telling you, I told y'all before, like doing this research has really opened my eyes to a lot of shit. And like when you think about it, like in terms of like the stuff that we've brought over and like how this country's capitalized off of it, how have we not gotten reparations for this shit? Like, how have we not? Like, they literally they stole our shit. And it's just like, they made so much money. Like, Coca-Cola they're worth like 80.83 billion. Like, how? Sway. It makes no sense to me. And it just, doing this research, it really blew my mind. When you talk about like North Carolina, and the Carolina Gold, rice, and it literally building the economy for North Carolina, like, how are we not having these conversations? Like, it's one thing with the inventions and the patents and shit, but then when you talk about like food and like, medical practices and like all of these like different things, how instrumental we are in society, and just it just blows my mind, y'all. It blows my mind. The debt is due. That's all I gotta say. The debt is due. I ain't gonna get into a whole rant, because I could definitely I could do a whole video on reparations. I don't know. TBD, how about that? But they're definitely due. I'm doing this research. You know what's crazy about that not Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson too, he was a nut and a half. For those of you who know the story of Thomas Jefferson, that's a whole video in itself. But George Washington, I was reading about George Washington, his chef, who was an enslaved man named Hercules. Hercules had his own garden and everything, and he was cooking for them and everything. Thomas Jefferson, his son, I mean, not Thomas Jefferson, but George Washington, his son was like obsessed with Hercules' food. And I was reading the fucking article, and it was talking about how George Washington was like shocked when Hercules decided to run for his fucking freedom. Like, they were obsessed with his food, and they just thought because they were obsessed with his food, he was happy. Like, he wanted to be enslaved cooking for them. Blows my mind. It really blows my mind. It blows my mind. Hercules got the fuck out of there is what he did. Shout out to Hercules, my brother, wherever you may are, to the ancestor. Y'all, I'm just telling you, I should take a bite of my little, spread. My little spread. I think I'm gonna do that. It blows my mind, some of this shit. You really could make it up. And like, I don't doubt any of it, because it's very consistent. It's very on par with what we've seen in our lifetime. And when I tell y'all, my yams hit, you can't tell me shit when I cook my yams. Baby. A part of the reason I wanted to do my little spread, because this is actually the first time since learning this information that I've had this food, and it hit different. It hit different. Some of these black-eyed peas, you heard me? Oh, and also, I didn't mention, because like, back in like North Carolina, like in the southeast, and like, places like Mississippi and stuff like that, we do like the black-eyed peas and stuff like that. It got me to thinking about like NOLA and like all of their different food customs and stuff like that. They do like the red beans and rice, and I mentioned, the jambalaya and the gumbo and stuff like that. Like, man, what we bought here, man, wouldn't be the same. Wouldn't be the same. And do you know, with black-eyed peas, so okay, the history behind black-eyed peas. The history behind black-eyed peas is that, or in terms of like New Year's, why we eat black-eyed peas on New Year's is that basically they they said that they brought good luck, and and the reason behind that is because they used to be, now they're, I guess, a different size and shape or whatever, but they would look like small little like coins. So they said that they would bring you like prosperity and wealth into the new year and luck. Same with like the greens and the cabbage and stuff like that, like bringing wealth and stuff like that into the new year. And what's great about New Year's, because I also learned that, you know, New Year's during that time was a time, you know, New Year's wasn't a day that you look forward to, or that our people look forward to during those times, because New Year's was a day where they did mass sellings of slaves. We went onto the selling block, and you know, they sold us, which the idea of us, you know, taking that day back and making it into something that's prosperous and that makes us think to the future and makes us think to, you know, what we want and where we want to go, and just having hope. Like, I think that's a beautiful thing that we reappropriated that day, took it back and made it into something so beautiful. And, you know, the idea of, you know, luck and prosperity and all of those things, and looking forward to the future, and having more, and not allowing our present situation be the end, I think is amazing, because had they not thought like that, we wouldn't be here, you know? And like I always say, we walk in miracles. We weren't intended to still be here. So the fact that we're here, and the fact that we can celebrate, we should celebrate, and we should be proud, and we should never let anybody take that away from us, ever. So, with that being said, I'm going to finish this, and I'm going to holler at y'all tomorrow. Happy 28 days, hold up. After I done talked about this watermelon. Happy 28 days of Black History Month, y'all. This is day 11. I'll be back at y'all tomorrow with day 12. Video for day 12, and y'all have a good night. Lamb got on there, but you know how niggas do. We mix it up. Okay, it's all going down the same way. Alright, y'all. Peace.